Alright then, hippies, what's happening? It's Jack here. Hey, good news. I actually got a tripod. Woohoo, yay, go me. So now I'm not shaking all over the place. But anyway, this is actually a video for the Duke3oh8. He was asking me about the whole process of cleaning and lubricating an AR-15. So here goes my best bet. I think in the last video that he was watching, I had gotten you this far, the basic field strip of the upper and whatnot. And like I said, pretty much the upper is going to be where you really want to put the most of your cleaning efforts and lubricating efforts into with these particular type of rifles. Now that we basically got this rifle field stripped, it's already cleaned and lubricated, by the way. I'm just doing this to see if I can't help you out. But, okay. First step is this. This is my opinion and my opinion alone. I know there's a lot of people that clean their rifles differently and lubricate their rifles differently, and there's a couple of different, I don't know, methods to the madness of all that, and I'll try and break down my thoughts on them. First step is this. Basically, you're going to need some kind, you said you're using CLP. I don't like CLP personally. I just don't really think that it gets the job done for me. I prefer to use a solvent and a lubricant on top of afterwards, and a preservative even on top of that if necessary. But my particular choice of solvent is going to be the good old standby hops, however the hell you pronounce it, number 9. And to start this off, basically I will take, this is a cleaning rod. I don't know how you can see that in there, but anyway, and it's got a bore patch in there, right? So I'll take and I'll dip this bore patch into this hops, and then I will run it from the back forward all the way through to the end of the barrel right there, and that's going to get a good bit of solvent on there. And then even after that, I'll take and I'll get another patch, and I'll get solvent all up in this piece right here, and get that good and solventified. And then I'll take and set that aside, and because like I said, you want to make sure that you let solvent cure. My next step is going to be to get a lot of these components clean. And the way that I usually do that is, first of all, I want to go ahead and get a lot of solvent all over them. And this is going to be a pretty dirty process. And this is actually a copper bore brush. I'll take this guy and dip it in there, and I'll scrub all over this, and I'll do this one part at a time. Just scrub it until I feel like it's really clean. And I also like to take pipe cleaners and clean out the insides of smaller components. I mean, you want all this stuff to be as clean as possible. And once I've got this good and scrubbed down to where I feel like all the crud and carbon fouling is broken loose at least, then I'll take another, like anything lint free will work. Don't use paper towels for this. And wipe everything down until I'm not getting any more black junk all over the place. Okay, so once I've got that piece set aside, no lubrication just yet, but anyway, I've gotten all the solvent off of it as well as all of the crud. I'll set it aside, and I do the same thing for all of the itty-bitty parts and whatnot, and just keep working my way over. One of the big pieces that you're going to have an issue with is this guy right here. This is the actual bolt itself for the AR-15. You're going to notice that you're going to have a lot of crud. Hang on. Well, I'm not used to working with a tripod. A lot of crud right across that front edge in front of the gas rings, which are these suckers right here. So right up in this area, it's going to be pretty difficult, but if you just sit there and scrub and scrub and scrub, like with a copper brush, because I mean the copper is much softer than the material that this bolt is made out of, so it's not really going to scratch it off. Get all that good and clean, whatnot. Set that aside, and you can even take, and once you've done that, you can reassemble it. Well, actually, here, we'll go ahead and talk about lubricating this now. Alright, my thoughts on lubrication. Basically, lubricating an AR-15, lubricating a lot of different weapons for that matter, it kind of depends upon what you want to do with it. You don't necessarily have to soak these things in oil for it to be right. If you put too much oil in it, the oil can actually gum up the action. Also, oil is sticky. It tends to attract a lot more dirt, and your rifle will get dirtier. If you clean your rifles on the reg, you can probably get away with it, and to be honest with you, it can also prevent a lot of wear as well. But parts that are relatively important, you're not going to see too many of it, but I mean, you want to keep parts where you can see that there is wear. You want to keep those parts lubricated pretty well, because that is metal on metal friction, and you want to keep that to a minimum. That's going to prolong the life of your firearm. Here, I like to get a little bit of oil down in here in the extractor, just so that way it's got some room to bounce. There is an ejector spring right here. I like to make sure that that's good and oiled to help make sure that I'm going to get proper extraction. I run a little bit of oil on a pipe cleaner and run it down inside here, as well as down inside here, but not too much. Very, very little. Little is the key. Spots that you do want to oil on an AR-15 are these rails right here, because that's going to be a contact point as well. So you want to make sure that stays good and oiled. And it's time to put the rifle back together. Once you've got your bolt, you put it back in. You want to make sure that the extractor is, this piece right here, is facing the passenger side of the bolt, and that this hole is facing straight up and down. You can slide it in there, and then you can put it back together. Once you've got it lined up, you take your cam pen, put it in there, turn it to where it's in the proper position, push the bolt forward. You've got that going in there. Alright, next step is going to be your firing pin. Firing pin literally goes in there like here. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting this in the viewfinder, because like I said, I'm used to not being able to work with both hands. Then your firing pin retainer goes in there. Now, a good thing to do, make sure that your firing pin is actually held securely in there. So now that we've got this guy good and done, well, hang on, let me actually speak to this right quick. If you're gonna put your rifle up for a long time, I say it's a good idea to soak it in oil. If for no other reason, the fact that oil is actually an oxygen barrier, or a mild oxygen barrier. That's why you see a lot of old rifles soaked in cosmoline. It prevents oxidation, i.e. rust. So I'm gonna keep that good. I don't know, I like for a lot of the semi-automatic rifles this break-free LP, which is a lubricant as well as a preservative. And it's a little bit thicker, and it sits on there. It takes the metal tends to take the oil, this oil, a little bit better than the rim oil. But yeah, works pretty well. I like that. I don't like a lot of the aerosol oils, just personal preference, not a big deal, whatever. Okay, so we've got this guy cleaned, lubricated, preserved, protected, and pretty much awesome. Cool. So we set him aside. Done. Alright, now on to the cool part. Yay. This is your upper receiver. Remember, as I said earlier, we've soaked the inside of this with solvent, right? And the solvent has had plenty of time to cure and get set up. So our next step, now this is kind of one that's up for debate, but I like to do it every now and then, usually about every 4th or 5th cleaning, just for good measure. Now that we've got our solvent cured in there, I will take this guy off, and I will put a bore brush on there, or like a copper bore brush, like one of these guys, and I'll attach it to the end of the rod, and I will run that rod from the breech to the barrel, and once it comes out the end of the muzzle, then unscrew that brush. Don't ever bring it back through. The reasoning behind that is you don't want to create unnecessary grooves in your barrel. There are already grooves in there, and they are very important. You don't want to detract from those. Do that 1 or 2 times, and that should break up a lot of the crud in there. You also want to make sure that that's dipped in solvent as well. Once you've done that, then I like to take and do the same thing with several different patches. Just run them through from the breech to the muzzle, and keep doing that over and over again until these patches start coming out pretty dang clean. I mean, you don't have to get them spotlessly clean, but I mean, as good as possible, you know. Anyway, and then I like to take and clean out, you're not going to be able to see much of this, but I like to clean out the inside of the upper receiver pretty well. And that, since it's already got the solvent on it, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. I like to take and use pipe cleaners again to get on top of the gas tube up there. Not really too big of a deal, but you know, it makes a difference. It keeps your rifle from getting cruddy and wearing and aging and dying a lot sooner than it should. And I mean, once you've got that pretty well done, as far as lubricating the inside of an upper receiver, there's not too much really to lubricate. I like to lubricate the top of the charging handle, just so that way it'll slide. Hang on, let me get the sucker in there. That way it'll slide in there a little bit easier. I mean, you probably want to put a little bit of oil down into the locking lugs inside of the breech right there, just because that's going to be a contact point here. You can even see a little tiny bit of wear on there. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, but you've got most of your oil on the bolt carrier group, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So now it comes time to reassemble the rifle, which is easy, done. Well, the upper at least. Got that good to go. So as far as functionality goes, the rifle is relatively clean. Then, well, actually, before I reassemble it, sometimes if I'm storing the rifle for a long time, I like to take one of these guys, which they're just little like fuzzy bore things. I don't even know what they're actually called, and I'll take and get a little bit of rim oil on those. You don't want too thick of an oil inside of your barrel. And I'll give those a good swipe, and you can see these are a little bit dirty. You can usually get a little bit of you can actually get lead deposits out of a barrel, even if you're using only jacketed ammunition. But what that does is, I don't know, I mean, it just prevents any kind of oxidation on the inside of the barrel. I mean, even if, I do it even though, I mean, this barrel's chrome lined, but it doesn't really matter, like, I still do it. No big deal, and put it back together, and then it's time to do this guy. Usually, I'll go through here with, I don't know, pipe cleaners or whatever, just to clean it out, but nothing too serious. I mean, this thing is pretty easy to maintain. There's really not much maintenance that goes into it, to be entirely honest with you. So, it's whatever. So now that we've got that done, go ahead, put the weapon back together. Alright, this weapon is reassembled. And you just saw a minute ago it is safe, and it's pointing in the safe direction regardless. And also, relatively important, give it a function check as well. Everything seems to function quite nicely. Take a minute, enjoy it, stare at it, see how pretty it is. Clean gun. I like it more than a dirty gun. I know, crazy. But also, I like to take and put a little tiny bit of oil on another patch and go over the outside of the rifle as well. Get all that cleaned up so at least that way it's looking nice and presentable. And not to mention, if you're going to store the rifle for a while, it's a good idea to do this just because, well, it's going to keep a lot of the oxygen off of the metal surfaces and prevent you from rusting up, and you know, go through oil any moving parts that you might have, anything that's going to be a pain in the butt. You know, get your rifle ready, get it good to go. But anyway, Duke, I hope that helps. If it doesn't, that's cleaning and lubricating a rifle. I mean, that's very, very basic. You can probably find better videos than what this is, but that's how I do it, and I've gotten many, many, many thousands of rounds out of other rifles by doing it this way and just keeping them clean. And I mean, I've gotten round counts much higher than what expected. I mean, this rifle, I'd say that the bore in this rifle is probably still at, I mean, 80% or better, and it's had, good lord, thousands and thousands of rounds put through it, and it's still going very, very strong. Again, like I said, I really hope that that's what you were looking for, and if not, holler at me. I will do my best to help you out one more time, but if no, then you know, peace.